Picture this. It's a Friday night in 1965. You pull off a two-lane highway and into an open field. In front of you, a screen the size of a building. Around you, hundreds of cars parked in neat rows, engines off, windows already fogging up. You reach out the window, hook a small metal speaker onto your door, and the movie begins. You didn't go inside. You didn't get dressed up. You brought your own popcorn, your own blanket, your own kids, and nobody said a word about it. At its peak, there were over 4,000 drive-in theaters operating across America. In every state, in small towns and big cities, you could find one within 20 miles of almost anywhere you lived. Today, fewer than 300 remain. That's not a slow decline. That's a collapse. And the story of how it happened tells you something important. Not just about movies, but about America itself. What killed the drive-in? Was it television? Was it the multiplex? Was it home video? The answer is all of those things, and one factor that almost nobody talks about. Let's go back to the beginning. The drive-in was invented by a man named Richard Hollingshead in 1933. He lived in Camden, New Jersey. He was a car parts salesman, which, when you think about it, explains everything. The story goes that his mother was too large and too uncomfortable to sit in a regular movie theater seat. So Richard did what any reasonable son would do. He set up a projector in his driveway, hung a sheet between two trees, and started experimenting. He tested speaker placement. He tried a radio under the screen. He literally hosed down his car with water to see if people could still hear the audio in the rain. He was thorough. Then he patented it. And on June 6, 1933, the same year, Franklin Roosevelt was trying to pull America out of the Great Depression. The first official drive-in theater opened to the public in Camden. It didn't explode immediately. For the first decade, drive-ins were a novelty, interesting, charming, but niche. Then World War II ended. After 1945, Americans had cars. They had money. They had babies, millions of babies. And they had a problem that nobody was solving. Babysitters were expensive. Indoor theaters didn't want your crying toddler in the third row. And a family of 5 couldn't afford 4 movie tickets every weekend. The drive-in solved all of it at once. You loaded the whole family into the station wagon. In pajamas, if you wanted. You brought your own food. Kids fell asleep in the back seat. Teenagers got privacy. And the entire night cost less than a sit-down restaurant. By 1958, there were over 4,000 drive-ins across America. It wasn't a fringe idea anymore. It was how America went to the movies. If you never went to a drive-in, here is what you missed. You arrived early because arriving early mattered. The best spots were the middle rows, where the screen angle was right and the sound carried clean. You pulled in, cut the engine, rolled down the windows. The smell was cut grass, engine heat, and someone 2 cars over had fried chicken. There was always an intermission. The screen would go dark and a countdown clock appeared. 10 minutes to get snacks. The concession stand sold hamburgers, hot dogs, popcorn, and fountain drinks. It was not good food. Nobody cared. The line stretched halfway across the lot. Before the intermission ended, the screen ran animated shorts, cartoon hot dogs, and dancing sodas telling you to visit the snack bar. These little films became strangely iconic. People who went to drive-ins as children remember those animations more vividly than the actual movies. Teenagers used drive-ins differently. A Friday night at the drive-in was never really about the movie. It was about being somewhere with someone, in the dark, away from parents. This became so widely known that drive-ins earned the nickname Passion Pits. The owners hated that. The teenagers loved it. For one brief window of American life, roughly 1948 to 1968, the drive-in was the center of it all. Family nights, first dates, summer evenings with nowhere better to be. It worked because nothing else like it existed, but the drive-in had a weakness built into its foundation, one that nobody worried about during the boom years. It only worked in summer. At night, in good weather, an indoor theater ran 365 days a year. A drive-in ran maybe 180, and only profitably on about 120 of those. The land sat completely idle every winter. The mortgage, the insurance, the upkeep, all year round for a business that could only earn money half of it. Then came something nobody expected to matter. Daylight saving time. When daylight saving was extended in 1966, sunset pushed later into summer evenings. Drive-ins couldn't begin their first showing until dark, which now meant 8:30, 9 o'clock on weeknights. Families with young children couldn't stay that late. The core audience, the exact audience that had built the industry, quietly stopped coming. At the same time, Hollywood was changing. Indoor multiplexes were being built everywhere, modern, air-conditioned, stadium-seated. Studios began giving first-run films to those multiplexes. Drive-ins got second-run titles, movies already 3 months old. Why drive out on a warm night to see something you could have seen in March? The drive-in was being quietly pushed to the back of the line. By the 1970s and 80s, the drive-in faced its most ruthless enemy. Pause, not a competitor, not a law. The land it was sitting on. Drive-ins needed huge flat parcels on the edge of town. When they were built in the 40s and 50s, that land was cheap. By the 1980s, suburban sprawl had consumed the outskirts of every American city. The empty field your drive-in sat on was now worth millions. As a Walmart, as a housing development, as a strip mall. Owners did the math. A drive-in running at half capacity, showing second-run films, earning money 5 months a year, or selling the land to a developer for more money than the theater had made in its entire history? Most of them sold. And within a decade, the land where those giant screens once stood was filled with parking lots and big-box stores, built on top of the memory, and then came home video. The VCR arrived in American homes in the late 1970s. By the mid-1980s, it was everywhere. For the first time in history, you could watch a movie at home, your own couch, your own clothes, pausing whenever you wanted, rewinding whenever you missed something. Everything the drive-in had promised. Comfort, privacy, your own space, your own food. The VCR now delivered without requiring you to leave the house at all. The drive-in's core promise had been stolen. Not by a competitor, by technology, and there was no answer to that. The drive-ins that survived figured out what they actually were. They weren't just movie theaters. They were an event, a reason to get out of the house, a way to let your kids run in the dark while something plays on a screen the size of a building. A summer tradition that feels different from anything a multiplex can offer. The surviving drive-ins leaned into that. Double features, classic films, flea markets on Saturday mornings in the same lot. They became something no franchise can manufacture, a place that belongs to somewhere specific, seasonal, imperfect, alive. About 300 are still operating. If there's one near you, it's probably worth going. The drive-in didn't die because people stopped loving movies. It died because the specific combination of conditions that made it work, cheap land, long summers, families with nowhere else to be, no VCR, no streaming, no multiplex down the road, all disappeared at the same time. What's left is something rare. A piece of American life that actually felt like American life. Not a brand, not a franchise, just a screen, a field, and whatever's playing tonight. If you went to a drive-in, leave a comment. Where was it? What did you see? What did you bring to eat? Subscribe if you want more history like this. There's a lot more coming.